Every weekend you force yourself out the door to meet people you'll forget conversations with by Monday morning. You say yes to invitations that drain you because saying no feels like admitting something is wrong with you. You perform enthusiasm in group settings while something inside you slowly starves. And afterward, when you're finally home and finally alone, you feel a strange combination of relief and guilt. Relief because the performance is over. Guilt because you needed it to be over so badly. Everyone says connection is the key to happiness. Everyone says relationships are what matter most. So why does most of your social life feel like a tax you pay for the privilege of being considered normal? Why does being around people so often leave you feeling more alone than actual solitude ever does? Jung spent years observing what social performance does to the human psyche, and his findings contradict almost everything popular culture insists about the importance of being social. He identified something called the persona, the mask you construct to interface with the world. This mask isn't optional. You need some version of it to function in society. But Jung also discovered that the more time you spend wearing the mask, the more you forget there's a face underneath. You start identifying with the performance. The role you play in social situations begins to feel like your actual identity. And the parts of yourself that don't fit the role get pushed deeper into the unconscious, where they ferment into what Jung called the shadow. Every hour spent maintaining your social mask is an hour not spent discovering who you actually are beneath it. The modern obsession with socializing treats solitude as a problem to be solved rather than a requirement for psychological health. If you want to be alone, something must be wrong with you. You must be depressed or antisocial, or suffering from some deficiency that needs correction. This framing is backwards. Jung recognized that solitude is where integration happens. It's where you process what you've experienced, metabolize your emotions, and hear the quiet voices inside that get drowned out by social noise. The person who never spends time alone never meets themselves. They remain strangers to their own depths, living entirely on the surface, confusing the persona for the whole self. This isn't connection, it's hiding in plain sight. The shadow grows in direct proportion to how much you perform. Every time you laugh at a joke that isn't funny to maintain social harmony, part of your authentic response gets suppressed. Every time you agree with an opinion you don't actually hold to avoid conflict, part of your real perspective gets buried. Every time you present yourself as happier, or more confident, or more agreeable than you actually feel, the gap between your persona and your true self widens. Jung saw that this gap is the source of most psychological suffering. People don't become neurotic because they spend too much time alone. They become neurotic because they spend too much time being who others expect them to be, and not nearly enough time discovering who they actually are. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from socializing, that people mistake for introversion, when it's actually something more universal. It's the exhaustion of performance, of monitoring yourself constantly, of managing impressions and calculating responses. Even people who genuinely enjoy others' company experience this drain if they're honest about it. Jung would say this exhaustion is a signal that the ego is overworking. It's trying to maintain a construction that doesn't match the full reality of the psyche. The relief you feel when you're finally alone isn't antisocial pathology. It's your system telling you it needs time to stop pretending and just exist without an audience. Jung also observed that many people socialize precisely to avoid themselves. Being around others provides constant external stimulation that prevents the discomfort of inner silence. In that silence, unresolved material starts to surface. Old wounds want attention. Unfaced fears become harder to ignore. The unlived life you abandoned to pursue what was expected of you starts making its presence felt. Socializing can function as a sophisticated avoidance mechanism, a way to stay so busy with external relationships that you never have to develop a relationship with yourself. The person surrounded by friends who still feels empty isn't lacking more friends. They're lacking the solitude that would allow them to understand why no amount of external connection fills the internal void. This doesn't mean relationships don't matter. Jung never advocated for isolation. What he recognized is that the quality of your connections with others is limited by the depth of connection you have with yourself. If you don't know who you actually are, you can only offer others your mask. And when two masks interact, the result isn't intimacy, but mutual performance. Real connection requires bringing something real to the encounter. That something real can only be developed in solitude, through the difficult work of confronting your own shadow and integrating what you find there. Socializing without this inner work produces relationships that look good from the outside, but feel hollow to everyone involved. The cult of socializing produces a specific type of person that Jung would have recognized immediately as psychologically underdeveloped. Always available, always agreeable, always performing enthusiasm, never alone long enough to wonder if any of it is authentic. This person is praised by society because they're easy to be around and never make anyone uncomfortable with depth or genuine emotion. But inside, they're fragmented, scattered across dozens of surface-level connections, with no center holding any of it together. They've optimized for external acceptance at the cost of internal coherence. Jung saw this trade as catastrophic for the soul, even when it looks like social success from the outside. The invitation isn't to become a hermit, but to question whether your current ratio of social time to solitary time actually serves your psychological development. Most people are wildly overexposed to others and wildly underexposed to themselves. Rebalancing this ratio feels uncomfortable at first because solitude strips away the distractions that keep you from facing what needs facing. But that discomfort is the beginning of real growth, the kind that doesn't happen in group settings no matter how connected everyone claims to feel. Jung called the process of becoming whole individuation, and it cannot be completed in public. Some doors only open when no one else is watching.